Welcome back to another episode of the Mountaineer Report, made possible by WVU Sports Now. I am your host, Mike Asti, and joining me is Ethan Bock. Summer is nearing an end, much to my dismay here, as we continue to rattle off the days in August, but that means a new college football season is fast approaching, and while all that is happening, the basketball program, both basketball programs, are also gearing up to start their new years as well. But before we get to some updates on Mountaineer hoops, and that includes a lot of winning for both the men and really the women on their foreign trips, but we are going to first talk WVU football camp. It is fall camp as the Mountaineers are gearing up for a new season, and as they're getting ready and a lot of players returning, some newcomers there. The vibes are all good. We've touched on it on our last couple editions of this show. They also got some news, which may motivate them more, but also may potentially provide some signs of optimism for how they're being viewed nationally going into the season. And that's been polarizing throughout the offseason. The Mountaineers get some votes. They don't get in the top 25, but they get some votes in a major poll for their top 25. It is the coaches poll, the same poll. They actually got ranked 25th to end the 2023 season. That was after the bowl game. So the final poll of the 2023 year put them at 25. They didn't get in the AP poll. They obviously didn't get the overall playoff rankings. They weren't part of that. They had got close to the AP poll at one point last year, but they didn't get in there. They get some votes, don't get in for the coaches poll. So Ethan, how do you take this? Do you take this as optimism, as positive things if you're a member of the football program and if you're a coach at WVU, or do you take this as another slight because you feel like you should have been part of the top 25, and kind of where do you think they're going to fit in the mix of the other polls? They got one off the board. They just fall out shy. They fall around, 32, 33, where the Mountaineers would be in this coaches poll with 22 votes?
Yeah, I think if you're with the program, I think it's another slight. I mean, last season, Big 12, they preseason voted number 14th in the conference, and they proved those voters wrong. They proved pretty much everybody in the conference wrong.
100%.
So I could see why they would just have another we got to prove them wrong again moment. And I think it's better for them to not be in this poll if you're looking to get motivation out of this team, especially week one against Penn State. Team's going to have a lot that they want to prove, especially on a national stage on Fox. So I think it's better off that they're not voted in these preseason polls. And even seventh in the Big 12, I think is a tad low.
We talked about it last show. Yeah.
I think it's a little too low, but that's just more motivation for the team.
It definitely appears, and it's really almost a fact now, that they prefer, kind of like being slighted, being the underdog, not being in these polls. They're going to tell you they're mad about it. They feel slighted. They should be there. Neil Brown, I'm sure, is going to say we should be there. But I wonder how they would handle things if they were. And we kind of started asking those questions. Okay, what if you beat Penn State? What if you do get ranked? If you beat Penn State off a 9-win year, you're probably getting in the top 25. How do you handle success? That's different than what you've been doing as you're trying to climb and bring this program back to glory. You proved doubters wrong last year, but would it be more difficult to handle actually receiving success? You win a Big 12 title. You're going into Dallas. You're definitely getting ranked at that point. You're in the playoff. You win the Big 12. How would you handle that? Because we've seen examples, too, where people, they rise up when they're proving doubters wrong, but once they get there, they can't stay there. They then fall off. It's tougher to stay there at the top than to get there for some. So I think they kind of like this. They are comfortable in this scenario of being an underdog. It'll remain to be seen how they will handle success if they do get ranked. But yeah, they're close. No cigar again. They did finish 25th, which they are taking as a major ranking. I will tell you, it's there. It's official. They are taking it as a major ranking in the coaches poll last year. It wasn't the AP, but the coaches poll. If they can crown a national champ, they're going to take top 25 rank there. They just slid in at the end of last season. But I think they kind of like this. I think they like the underdog role. It'll be very, very interesting if they clip off some W's and they get ranked, how they then will talk and how they will handle that.
It fits them. You're right on. The underdog mentality is perfect for this team, and it's a fair question. If they did beat Penn State, then all of a sudden they're the hunted instead of
in a
being
way
the hunters.
Yeah, that's the biggest win for any Big 12 program to have, certainly out of conference play in a while. And you'd have to figure they would probably then get ranked. That'd be the best win any of these teams in front of them in at least this poll would have in week 1.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, they could certainly blow it if you beat Penn State and lose to Pitt. I'm sure they're going to drop out of that top 25. But it is interesting. They get close, and you could also look, and we did before we hit record here on this show. I mean, the program's in front of them, so they got 22 votes. It puts them at 33. Auburn got 25, Boise State 30, Memphis 44, SMU 47, Virginia Tech, that everybody and their brother thinks are going to be back this year, but I've been waiting for a decade, and it hasn't happened yet. So 64 votes for the top 25 here. I'm sure week 1 or 2, they're going to be on the verge of an upset or get upset. That's a spoiler, guys. Louisville at 95. Washington going from the national title game. You lose a QB. You fall way back. They're not ranked. They get 123 votes, though. They're very, very close. And Iowa, 10 wins. Very, very boring 10 wins, though, at 148. So that's kind of the crew they're trying to get in front of. They would have the best win if they do win in week 1. And really, even if they're competitive, they can argue for it because Penn State, to let everybody know if you haven't seen this, Penn State is way at the top at number 9, so they're in the top 10, and Utah at 13 would be the highest ranked Big 12 team. This is just the coaches poll. This is not the AP. The AP could be different. The playoff obviously hasn't happened yet. Their poll won't come for a while. But Penn State, a win over Penn State would be, according to this, better than every other team in your conference. That would have to, I'd imagine, propel them into the rankings. And you could argue, Ethan, that those teams in front of them, certainly outside that top 25, outside of Washington last year, Auburn usually, but not recently, and maybe occasionally Louisville, it's been a while for Tech. They're not powerhouse programs there. I mean, they could leapfrog those teams. And maybe you could argue, if you're WVU, we had a better year than all those teams except for Washington, maybe except for Louisville. If you're looking at roster and last year, maybe we should be ahead of those teams.
There's a reason why they feel like they should be slighted.
Yeah.
The program does get a lot of disrespect, and the first few years of Neil Brown, they deserve to not get any relevance.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
but last season, just coming off of, it seemed like they really couldn't go that high of a ceiling, and then they were able to get 9 wins. They should feel slighted when some of these teams really haven't done much the last few years.
I mean, last quality year for Virginia Tech, when was it?
Even
people are voting them in.
Even a Boise State at the national level, they've always been good.
Memphis, but
right. SMU moving to the ACC, how big of a jump is that from the American?
We saw UCF. They were perennially a national contender as a group of 5. They can argue what they won about 2017. Getting to the Big 12, it's a different ball game. They've definitely been struggling. Why would SMU not deal with the same situation?
Yep.
And yet these voters don't think so, and these are direct peers of Neil Brown, so he should fire off some texts if he's upset about this poll in comparison to the AP, which obviously is media members, and we know about the playoff committee, etc. It'll be interesting. Right now they're not in, but I do think, Ethan, as we're saying, if they would get respect, certainly going into the year, if they would have been put ahead of these teams and would have been put 22nd or something like that, Neil Brown would say, "Hey guys, we made it. We're this. We got to be better than that. Obviously, that's not our end goal, but we're getting some respect." I think secretly he likes this, though. I think that would be harder to motivate the team. I think they would maybe sit in there, be more comfortable going into the year. Where now it's guns blazing. We got to prove people wrong. They don't even just want to beat Penn State. They want to win by a touchdown or more to really send a message, etc. They are at home. Again, I'm not predicting they're going to beat the Nittany Lions, but that has to be the mindset of the team. And maybe if they were ranked in these polls, they wouldn't feel that way. Although it is funny, every time they say these things, we do then get, some release that Green or White or CJ, they're on some national list. So they're slowly getting more recognized. but I feel like the program does like being the underdog. Ethan Bock, Mike Asti here, as we are talking Mountaineer football, still in the midst of fall camp, close to top 25 recognition in a major poll. A lot of things going on that we've touched on and certainly is being covered on WV Sports now on the site and even has been talked in other shows. Nico's looked really, really good as the backup QB. They say the offense will be the same if he starts. We'll see. Obviously, the goal is to have Green start all those games and Green to have a big year. A lot of conversation about White, CJ rebounding from maybe an up and down 2023. One more player, though, I want to touch on that's been talked about a lot. He's a star. It's his last year. We talked about it before. The burner accounts that he was gone. He's still there. It's Aubrey Burks. But a new role for him, going to the spear instead of just the cat safety. He might play both. He's practiced a lot at spear, though, in camp. It's more of a hybrid linebacker type thing than just a traditional free safety role that he's done before. How does that change your expectations of Burks? Do you think this is better for him, better for the defense? He seems to love it. He wants to blitz more. Will this help him get to the NFL?
It's tough because I think it can go either way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think Burks
Right.
played his normal just safety role well.
Yeah.
But now kind of getting involved with the hybrid linebacker safety position in college football. Maybe it unlocks something that we haven't seen from Aubrey Burks, and maybe that just makes him even a better prospect for the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Which clearly is probably what the program's leaning towards. They probably see that and want to take advantage of that.
I would imagine. He also did
hope.
tell us that kind of what led to this is he asked the coaching staff, hey, I want to show more. I want to be more versatile. Show more to who? The NFL. Like, it's clear that's where his mind is. That's the goals will say it isn't. But contract year that he's put out there. Contract for what? The NFL. Like, that's what he's trying to do. But, yeah, it is kind of a risk a little bit.
Yeah, can he play like that linebacker hybrid spear role? Like, I don't know.
Well,
Do you
we
have the
haven't
goal
seen
for
it
it?
in a game. He's looked okay and fine in practice. As we were talking again before the show, it's weird because, again, to describe it to anyone who's not a WVU fan, this is a hybrid role. This is closer to the line of scrimmage than where he's been. A lot of this is part of depth because they have more depth this year in the secondary. They need more depth. You are losing Beanie Bishop. So part of this is need, but he also wanted to show more. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't. If you look a picture of him, you look him up, he's not going to scream linebacker to you. And if you're moving him further away from being a free safety, he's not a strong safety. If you're taking him and making him this hybrid, if I'm an NFL scout, I might be more confused on what he is and how to scout him for the next level. Maybe his stats will be higher and he's going to get some sacks. He's going to get more picks. I would imagine look for from forced fumble recoveries instead of interceptions from him. If he generates all that, then yeah, the stats are there. But if he doesn't do those things, I think kind of what you're getting at is how would you grade him without looking at the stats on this new position? And we certainly don't know until we see him do it in a game. Practice, everyone looks good.
Yeah, is he really going to vastly improve the defense by going to this hybrid role? We'll see. I just don't know if I just don't know if it's totally worth it because we talked about their linebackers prior. I like the potential they all have.
They have more this year than in the past, right?
Yeah. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But clearly the staff see something. So let's see what Aubrey can do just with that position.
Yeah, and kind of some pressure on him. It sucks to say this because he had an injury hamper his season last year. It wasn't like he was bad. He was good when in there. He was an impact presence when in there. But the overall numbers don't show that because he was hurt and had that event at TCU, etc. So he does kind of have some pressure now. This is it. This is his final year. PFF loves him, but they need NFL scouts to love him. It's not just about PFF. So PFF's loved him for 2 years. They need more, and this could go one way or the other. I think maybe it kind of is the gamble. He's willing to throw the dice. Okay, I do this. I maybe can show more of my versatility. I'll be more of a prospect, or it could take away what he used to do, which he was doing well, and make him not as much of a prospect. We will see. And the Garnett Hollis, Jaheim Joseph, there is more depth to secondary now. Maybe those guys force this upon Burks too, because they're going to fit more into the DB, those type of roles. I was interested to hear Leslie talked about Reed Carrico, who he mentioned, part of that linebacker experience depth. He called him a depth piece. I mean, I look at him as potentially being the star of that linebacker room, with maybe Josiah Trotter and others who are young and trying to get some playing time. So if Reed's just a depth piece, and maybe that is part of Aubrey Burks is going to be kind of that guy. And again, he's like a linebacker safety hybrid spear role is what he's going to be doing. Before we end this show, though, Ethan, obviously football is front and center. It's kind of the end of summer, which means fall is in the air. It's college football season. Everyone's talking about it. But the basketball program, they're overseas. They're not in the Olympics. They're not in Paris, but they're in Italy. They're enjoying some pasta, and they're enjoying winning some games, both men and women. Now that we've seen these teams on the court in this foreign trip, what are your thoughts about both of these teams and how this foreign trip is working out for the Mountaineers?
Yeah, we talked about how both teams are experiencing different situations with these trips and taking advantage. Obviously, common denominator is team chemistry, but it's way, way more important for this men's program than the women's program. Even though it's still vital to the women's program, just continue the momentum they had from last season. But this men's team is hitting a complete refresh button in the entire program, and this is just a vital time with so many new guys on the team, a whole new staff, expecting guys to step up this year and help out Tucker DeRees and Javon Small. Seeing young guys like Jonathan Powell, Monty Hansberry put up solid numbers. Powell had 24 points on Tuesday in their second game with 5 threes. So that's a good sign, even though it's
5 threes. Yeah, they need a 3-point shooter. That's fans kind of been wanting that in today's modern basketball.
And it's tough to judge the talent they're really playing. It's a lot like U18, U19 type of teams. So they're not playing the greatest teams, but at the same time, like just a trip, not even them on the floor, just a trip in general will help them a lot.
And I think seeing them on the court together playing is what the coaching staff wants to get out of this. Obviously, team bonding, etc. You need to do that, especially when it's a new group, new job. The coaches got to bond with each other. They haven't all been together, obviously. But seeing them together, and you can only see so much at a practice. You got to play somebody. If it's not this foreign trip, then find some kids in the rec center. Like, you need to play basketball, whether you know you're going to win by 30 or lose, just together and get the cohesiveness. Just lastly, everyone's upset about them not having the size, not bringing in enough in terms of bigs, a lot of guards that were added to this team in the portal. Anything from the foreign trip and what you've learned about these games overseas that either gives you more concern, less concern, the same amount of concern about the situation of lack of size for the Mountaineers?
Yeah, if Powell and Hansberry don't step up through the whole season, I'll have a lot of concern just for their depth in general. Especially at the 5. Like, DeRees started Hansberry at the 5, and Hansberry's listed as 6'8". He's probably on the smaller end.
They have one true guy there.
One true big in Eduardo Andre, who started on Tuesday. But we saw it happen last year when Jesse Edwards got hurt for 6 weeks. Pat Sumnick had to step in, a smaller 5, more so a power forward, step in, and he played well. But when you don't have that much depth in the front court, especially during Big 12 play, you're going to struggle. And West Virginia had a lot of front court depth issues last year, whether it's an injury, whether it's a cook, his health scare, just anything. So,
it was bit from the start, right?
That's just an example. And and even under Hugs, they had towards the end they had the same sort of struggle when they're starting Isaiah Cottrell at the 5. So that's my concern still. I think this team might surprise me and others just with their scoring. I think it's early. It's obviously only the foreign trip, but
if they get hot, they could sneak up and beat somebody you don't expect them to beat. Like that's kind of how this team is built.
Yeah, I think the two X factors are clearly Amani Hansberry and Jonathan Powell.
Okay, and they're playing well. So the X factors are playing well, and then on the women's side, Quinterly's playing well. Obviously, they're going to go as far as she will take them, but two different situations now for the men's and women's. They're both overseas. Again, this trip was supposed to happen last year. It's happening this year, and maybe a blessing for the program to do it now, get chemistry with this team, new coaching staff. This group is more important than obviously last year's was, and that was a bridge to this new era of Mountaineer basketball. He's Ethan Bock. I'm Mike Asti. That'll do it for this edition of the Mountaineer Report. We will be back with another one of these, at least one more of these, before the end of this week. And by that point, I will have seen one more day of camp practice for the football team, and we'll kind of be wrapping up the tour of Italy as well. I'm jealous of their pictures and what they're putting out on social media, more so what they're doing off the court and playing a game or two. We also have all of that coverage, of course, at WV Sports Now.